I'm Kecia. I'm in East Tennessee, born and raised here, and I own an internet business, and I do some hospice work, and I work with the homeless. So I work with addiction, mental illness. We look at being a child and growing up. One part of me wanted to go to medical school, and one part of me, I never thought I would live past 18. So every year I was always surprised that I'd had another birthday.
Welcome to this episode of the Biology of Trauma podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Aimie. What if I told you that health, wholeness, and authenticity are not as far away as you think, no matter what you've been through, or what degree of biology of trauma you have, or all that you have tried? Whether you are here as a self-help individual or like Kecia, someone who also helps others, we can think change requires a lot of time. And that is not always true when we follow the essential sequence I cover in Chapter 12 of my book. So this episode features Kecia, a woman who spent 30 years on medical disability and needing daily 3-hour naps just to survive. You see, by age 25, autoimmune illness had taken nearly everything from her. Her career as a respiratory therapist, her ability to hike, even basic tasks now felt impossible. She would sleep sometimes 16 to 18 hours a day, housebound and dismissed by doctor after doctor who couldn't see what was wrong. She just completed the foundational journey, and something happened that might sound impossible, which is why I wanted her to share the story, because you might not believe me. In her story, you will hear about what is possible when we finally address trauma patterns where they live in our nervous system, and how quickly change can happen compared to how long it took us to get here. You'll hear about unresolved attachment wounds and how they show up as physical symptoms, and why it can take decades to get medical validation when it is trauma driving our biology. Let's dive in. I've really been looking forward to this, and I'm just super honored to have some time with you today. It is about more than telling stories. It's about giving hope to others and having a moment. Because I remember feeling very lost. I remember being in that place without hope. As you think back on your life, how did you think your life was going to go? What did you think your life was going to go when you were a kid, a teenager, early 20s? What were the dreams that you had for your life?
I'm Kecia. I'm in East Tennessee, born and raised here. And I own an internet business, and I do some hospice work, and I work with the homeless. So I work with addiction, mental illness. I had two trains. One part of me wanted, as when we look at being a child and growing up, one part of me wanted to go to medical school. And one part of me, I never thought I would live past 18. So every year I was always surprised that I'd had another birthday.
Why did you have a thought that you weren't going to live past 18?
Just my life. I started getting sick as a teenager, autoimmune as a teenager, but just depression. And
so life has not gone as you expected. What has been your life course? What have been some of the highs and some of the lows?
So I was too sick to go to medical school, of course. I became a respiratory therapist. And by the time I was 25, I was on Social Security disability, and which I got off of at 45. And I don't remember a lot of my 30s. I was mostly homebound for many years.
That sounds like that would have been very challenging. Came with a lot of emotion and beliefs about yourself, likely. Can you share some of that experience with me? I have something special for my podcast listeners. You know my book is already available for order, but I want to share a few time-sensitive opportunities to go deeper with me and implementing the concepts in the book. These are opportunities that are only available until September 22nd. So that's why I wanted to just insert myself here quick and tell you about these opportunities. If you are one that's still looking around at all your options, you aren't sure if you have a biology of trauma, you aren't ready to actually take action based on the science laid out in the book, but you really want to understand the concepts, you are seeking understanding, then you will want the Guided Seeker Bundle. This is where you are getting a workbook and master course to go with the book. It's walking you through the main concepts of each chapter so that you get the support of helping you learn and understand and not having you miss critical concepts in this book. If you are ready to take action and implement, I am giving my support to help you accelerate your implementation of the concepts. This will be through a live 1/2 day group intensive online on Zoom, and I am going to go through the workbook with you. This is where you will get my support to implement the concepts, making sure that you know how to implement what is in the workbook and the master course. Finally, if you are a practitioner, guide, or coach, and you help others, you will really want to consider the Fast Track Practitioner Bundle, which includes everything we've just talked about, the master course, the workbook, and the 1/2 day online intensive with me, and a 1-day in-person with me in my home, where we are going to identify your personal blocks to your next level of healing and regulation. Especially if you are helping others, it is so important for you to go the next layer deep. And your body would have already done that level of healing if it were ready. It needs something. There is a block somewhere. And let's go uncover that together so you can walk away with your personalized 30-day plan for where to focus your time, energy, and money for removing your current biggest block to your next level of regulation, authenticity, and health. Visit biologytrauma.com/book. This is where you can order a single copy of the book, and then it will immediately show you these opportunities to go deeper with me and the book.
I always believed that the illness was because of my childhood. And if I had been in a different family, maybe I never would have gotten sick, or I wouldn't have gotten sick till I was 40 or 50. Yeah, it was difficult. I pretty much by 25 lost everything. I had been an athlete and a hiker, and I lost my job and the ability to do anything. So yeah, it was tough. I spent most of my time sleeping or reading, and that's literally all I did for about 20 years.
I can imagine that would have been very discouraging given who you had wanted to be.
Yes, I was very dissociated as a way to cope. And of course, now I know I was in the freeze. And so I would sleep for 16, 17, 18 hours a day, and then take naps every day for 2 or 3 hours. The hardest part for me was, I think overall, was getting the medical profession to realize I was sick. That was the biggest struggle. I started going to the doctors when I was 16 years old. When I got a car and I could make my own doctor's appointment, I drove to the doctor and said, there's something wrong with me. And I did that year after year, doctor after doctor, and they would do tests and tell me, oh, you're just too active. I couldn't keep weight on. My lymph nodes were swollen. I was exhausted. So when I started working as a respiratory therapist, there was a female ER doctor. And I thought, okay, maybe a woman will listen to me. And I sat in her office. I had been throwing up at night. My lymph nodes were swollen. In her office, I had a fever of 102. And I said, I've been like this for months. And she thought I was dying. And I don't think she tested for autoimmune disease. She thought I had cancer, and she thought I was dying, and she was very worried. I was emaciated. I couldn't keep weight on, and I did not have an eating disorder. But when my blood work came back fine, she suggested maybe I was depressed. And I was too exhausted to suggest back that swollen lymph nodes and fevers are not a symptom of depression. And so at that point, I was like, I gave up. but I was still working, and I woke up one morning and all of the joints in my body were swollen and I couldn't get out of bed. And I knew then I had an autoimmune disease. Within minutes of waking up, I thought, now I know what's wrong with me. Now I just have to get somebody to believe me. And a friend of mine knew a rheumatologist and called him, and he said, oh, if she has swollen joints and a fever, she needs to be seen now. And he saw me that day. And 30 years later, he's still my rheumatologist. I saw him that day and he said, you are very sick. And no one had ever said that. I couldn't get anybody to believe that. And so I tried for years, all the medications. There weren't a lot. Initially, I was diagnosed with like mixed connective tissue disease and Sjogren's. And so he was a wonderful doctor. He still is. And he would come in and he would sit with me and say, I'm so sorry you're sick. I wish there was something I could do to help you. There are no medications. There's nothing I can do. Let's just sit together. And he would say, you aren't lazy, you're sick. And that was huge. And he's still my doctor.
Let me pause here, because what happened with Kecia and her rheumatologist really reveals something crucial about the biology of trauma and the healing process. When someone finally sees you, believes you, and validates your experience, your nervous system registers this as a huge signal of safety. For Kecia, having a medical professional sit with her, look her in the eye and say, you're not lazy, you're sick. This is not just emotional support. This is actually changing her physiology. It changes our physiology when we experience it, and it changes someone else's experience and their physiology when we do that for others. This is what we call co-regulation, but this is powerful co-regulation because of what we have been through in the past. To feel truly seen, understood, validated by another person is signals of safety to our nervous system. That changes our biology. That vagus nerve, the parasympathetic, the ventral vagal, controls our rest and digest, or as I call it, calm aliveness, starts to come back online. And then no matter what we're going through, we will be feeling safer. We will be coming more from a place of feeling secure rather than coming from a place of fear. So here's what's important to understand. Kecia's body, her mind, had learned to dissociate from the physical pain and exhaustion as a survival strategy. This likely started in childhood when her parents couldn't provide the safety and support she needed. She didn't get that co-regulation. And how powerful it was for her to experience that, and how powerful it can be for us when we give ourselves that regulation, when we see ourselves, validate ourselves, and when we do that for someone else.
So I tried everything, of course, every prescription meds, lots of prednisone, vitamins, supplements. I had the mercury taken out of my mouth, yoga, meditation, 25 years of psychotherapy. I tried everything. And slowly over time, I did start getting better. Then what? Now you've got me hanging on the edge of my seat. And when I was in my 40s, I knew from a young age, so as a respiratory therapist, that I did not want to do ER and ICU. I wanted to do hospice work, and I felt called to do hospice work. So I became a hospice volunteer, and I had about 2 hours of energy a week, and I gave it to my hospice patients. And my first patient had ALS, and I fell in love with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. And so that's who I only saw ALS patients for years. And the ALS Association hired me to do their support groups. So I did support groups for ALS and caregivers of ALS. I have not done that in years, but I still have patients because my name is out. It's not a big disease. And so my name is out in that world. And so years later, I still get phone calls from people that want me to come visit them, etc., newly diagnosed, whatever. I just had a patient die about 3 months ago, and I was able to be with him when he died. And so I love that work. But I did slowly get better. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, I felt called to serve the homeless. And so I've done that. I just resigned from a job. I can't work like 20 hours or 40 hours a week, but I took on an executive director position over a homeless emergency shelter as a volunteer. I took it on as a volunteer. Yeah. And then I found out about you and the 21-day journey. And it has totally opened up a whole new world for me.
How did you find me and the 21-day journey?
So a really good friend of mine is a licensed social worker, and she sent me a video of you being interviewed on YouTube by someone. I don't even know who. And I found out about you had some sort of a class where you talked about attachment and the 6 attachment or 7, I don't remember. And you specifically talked about hold me, see me, hear me. And I cried that entire, I think it was maybe a master class. And because I had issues in every single one of them. And I thought, okay, I don't know what this person is teaching or doing, but I've got to do whatever it is. I clearly have issues here. So I signed up for the 21-day journey. And it's been 2 months since the day one of the 21-day journey. And then I've done the all parts of me. And so 7 weeks straight, I have not had a nap. And I haven't gone 7 days without a 2 or 3 hour nap. And it's been 7 weeks. Is that not? It is an absolute miracle.
I want to explain what was actually happening in the biology for Kecia during those 30 years of needing daily naps, because this is where the science becomes really important. When our nervous system is stuck in what we call the shutdown state, this is mediated by the vagus nerve as well. We're in the shutdown state and it's become a chronic state. This is what Kecia was experiencing. It's also called the chronic functional freeze. And our body is essentially running on minimal energy to survive. A functional freeze, or that shutdown state, are the trauma states, and they are now in a biology of conserving energy. So it's like our internal systems, digestive system, cardiovascular system, lymphatic system, are all saying, we can't afford to be fully alive right now. We're not going to expend the energy to do our digestion the right way. We're not going to expend the energy to do our lymphatic and circulation flow the right way. It's not the best use of our energy. It's not safe to use that energy for those kinds of daily tasks. And so this is when we can feel the constant exhaustion, maybe fatigue. We can experience the need for sleep. And for Kecia, it had gotten so bad that she needed that much sleep in order to get through. But it can also present as sugar cravings. Sugar cravings because our body is needing that sugar to make the energy, to stay in that energy conservation mode and just barely get by. And it doesn't want to use up a lot of energy to make energy. And so it calls and craves for that fast sugar to make fast energy. So these are all signs that her biology was giving us that showed that it was in a chronic trauma state, that it was accumulating a biology of trauma and nervous system dysregulation more and more over the years. And this is the biology that had been at play for her since her childhood, when she first started experiencing overwhelm and started living in survival mode. And so again, just this idea that when we experience overwhelm, whether you use the word trauma or not, when we experience that fear, that pain, that overwhelm, it doesn't just get stored in our mind and our psyche or our emotions. It does become our biology through the nervous system dysregulation. It literally changes how our cells produce energy, how our immune system functions or does not function well, and even how our brain, our digestive system, our lymphatic systems are doing their daily tasks that are based now on danger mode instead of feeling safe.
My husband, I keep hearing him telling people, it's just a miracle. Like, she's like the person I knew 30 years ago. So I about 10 hours a night. And I have days when I want to take a nap. But instead, I sit at my computer and I go through a somatic training, a video, a recording of you or whatever. And that's all the rest I need. I'm fine after that. I'm okay. And it is an absolute. Another interesting thing is that like I was a major dessert eater. Like I crave dessert all the time. I need a dessert every day with every meal. And since I started the 21-day journey, I've had dessert one day. Don't have the sugar cravings. I haven't tried. I just don't have those cravings anymore.
Did you expect this? Did you expect these kinds of changes to happen?
I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know. It's not, you don't say expect this and this. I had no idea what to expect. I figured it would be like all the other sort of classes and stuff I've taken or therapy. I didn't expect physical changes. I didn't know that was even possible. Yeah. No, I didn't expect it at all. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't have believed it if you had said, oh, take this course and you won't need naps anymore. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so how are you starting to see yourself differently and experience yourself differently at this point?
Wow, I'm alive. I've experienced a lot of joy. I'm doing things like, for the first time ever, I got a pedicure last week. So my toenails are painted, which I was too sick to do stuff like that for 30 years. I don't know. I'll have to sit with that.
One last question that makes me curious around the attachment. You really resonated with the attachment pain. How were those showing up in your life? And have you noticed any change in how you were experiencing some of the effects and the impact of those attachment pains in your relationship with yourself, your relationship with others? Tell me more about that attachment stuff.
A lot of that had really helped by therapy and being in therapy for so long. I think coming out of the freeze certainly helps attachment. Being more present. Let me think about that question too.
A lot of compassion for that, Kecia.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing all that. I know we'll circle back as you sit with a few of those questions, but just want to take a pause. That has been a lot.
Intense.
And I'm wanting to reflect back on the power of that one rheumatologist and the role that he played in your life.
And still does, yes.
And still does. Of course he still does. After that, of course. Like he's become an attachment figure because of who he was and how he showed up for you. And it actually was the more powerful medicine for him to just sit with you rather than having the right treatment and the right medication that he could just prescribe to you and walk away. He sat with you.
Month after, I would see him once a month. And he was always on time. In 30 years, I think he's been late once. He's always on time. And he would sit with me sometimes 30 minutes and just say, I'm sorry. I know you're sick. I wish there was something I could do to help you. There isn't anything. There's some new drug they're experimenting with right now. And maybe that sort of thing. I did take Rituxan treatments, which I did not meet the diagnostic criteria for, but when the Rituxan came out, he said, this works with lymphocytes, and I think you have lymphocyte issues. Let's try it. And so I did it for 3 years, maybe. And I really was a guinea pig. They didn't know anything. I was there for 8 or 10 hours and they would give it to me really slowly and tons of Benadryl and prednisone because they didn't know what would happen. But I think it did give me a little bit of a kickstart. But I have not been on medication in several years. No Plaquenil. I got whatever it is in your eyes that you get from Plaquenil. So I couldn't take Plaquenil. Methotrexate didn't work. Prednisone was great and awful. Nothing worked. Nothing helped, really.
As you're describing all that, I'm thinking, of course, your mind wanted to dissociate from your body.
Yes. Yeah. It was not helpful to know I had one. That's not a good coping skill when it doesn't work. When the body doesn't work, being connected to it didn't seem like a real positive thing. Yeah.
Thank you, Kecia.
Thank you. I feel that. I will say a part of me always knew I was here for a reason and that I was going through it for a reason. And actually the first ALS patient that I saw on hospice, I remember thinking what I've been through allowed me to do that work and that it had been worth it.
That's the power of being able to take our experiences and say, and I can be of service. I can be of value. And I can actually do things that other people can't do because of what I've been through. Not that I would choose that road again, but I'm here and it wasn't for nothing. I think how powerful that you weren't even expecting to live past 18 and yet you chose to help with hospice.
Yes, being able to, when you're sick for so long, you learn to be versus do. And when people are dying, they can't do anymore. And to recognize the power of being when we can't do anymore. It's very powerful. And to be able to sit with people and just hold space for being. And I learned that. And it's now a gift I can give others.
I feel so honored to know these deeper aspects of your story, Kecia. It's a good place for us to think back then on the younger version of yourself, whether that's Kecia in your teenage years or some other time in your life. Think back on what is one time, a younger version of yourself. What age would you want to be able to say something to that younger version of yourself? And what would you want to say to her? That's how we will close today.
Now, I don't have an age. Very young. Was a reassurance that we're going to make it. That the people around, it's not that they don't love me. It's that they don't know how. And that one day I will find people that will love me. It's a reassurance of that. And that I'll be able to accept, which is hard.
Maybe, Kecia, I'll add on to that. If someone has had experiences like you in their lifetime, and they're sitting here looking at, do I take this foundational journey? Do I not? Am I worth it? Can I do it? I still need my daily naps. Can I commit to this? What would you want to be able to speak into and say to that person who has resonated a lot with your story and your share for whatever reason?
I believe that everyone has a part of them that believes and knows that they are here for a reason. And illness or whatever gets in the way. But that part is still there. And I would say give that part a chance. What do you have to lose at this point? What do you have to lose? The part of you that can still hold on a little bit of hope or know that you have a reason to be here, give it a chance. 21 days out of a whole lifetime is not a lot of a commitment.
Just pause. Feel if there's a sense of completion with what we've shared today. Feel like we've met our intention of sharing from the heart and sharing hope.
Okay. So what is your advice? You've heard our stories and where we are. What is your advice for us at this point? Do you have any wisdom to share or advice to share?
A lot that comes up is around energy. And we each have a daily capacity. The more that you can come to know what your daily capacity is for that day, because it will be different each day, the more that you can form a relationship with your body where you know your capacity for that day, then that allows you to make better informed decisions about how to invest your energy for that day. What are the things that you want? Because if you only have so much energy, invest it in what will really make a difference. And so let it become a choice. Let it become a very intentional, deliberate choice of, this is where I'm wanting to move my life, develop my true self. This is where I want to be steering my bus. What would be the best use of my energy today to accomplish that? Don't let me use my energy in places that won't really matter for taking my life, my health, my relationships, my personal growth where I want it to. That would be my overall thought, is knowing that we each have our own daily capacity. Come to know yours so well that you know that you are investing your energy in what would truly make the most difference for you. And then rest, right? Invest and rest. Repeat that rhythm every day. Invest your energy and rest to fill back up with energy. Invest your energy, then rest. And that's, I think, the secret to maintaining our nervous system regulation and not letting life take us to places that we didn't want to go. Because there's a lot of things that can take our energy. We're perfect, and I'm still not perfect at it at all. There are still some days where I get to the end of my day and I'm like, oops, I didn't save enough energy for this important thing. And it was important. And I ran out of energy. I let that person, that thing, that whatever it was, I let them take more energy from me than it was worth. Lots of love. Thank you so much for this time. I feel very honored to have gotten a window into your life. Stories like Kecia's are exactly why I wrote my book, The Biology of Trauma. I kept seeing people like her, patients, then course members. They are intelligent, they are capable, and their bodies are just holding trauma in ways that disrupt their life. And they hadn't known the framework to understand what was happening or what to do about it. One of the key concepts of the book is this principle of capacity and how the trauma response is an energy problem, which was why that was my last advice to her. It's one of the key concepts I go through in my master course and workbook that are available now in one of the bundles to go deeper with me and the book. In fact, section 3 of my book explains the science of why Kecia had this drastic change that seems magical, maybe impossible, after so many decades of being held back. That is why I call it trauma healing accelerated, because it is what is possible when we have and follow that essential sequence. So again, for my podcast listeners, I want to make sure that you know that for all of those who order a copy of the book right now on Amazon, I am giving you my 5-day nervous system reset, 5 of the somatic exercises that changed everything for Kecia. And you go to biologytrauma.com/book to order and get those 5 somatic exercises when you order the book on Amazon. Remember, there are the deeper experiences with me in the book that are available only for purchase before the book releases. So check those out now. I'd hate for you to miss out on those opportunities simply because life got busy. So again, Guided Seeker Bundle. This is where you get a workbook and a master course walking you through the main concepts of the chapters in the book. The Accelerated Implementer Bundle. That's for you if you want to actually take action and have my support for that. Live half-day online group intensive to help you implement the concepts in the workbook and really get the most out of it. This is scheduled for after you would have time to go through the workbook and master course and reading the book. And then after that, the Fast Track Practitioner Bundle, which includes everything of the other bundles and 1 day in person with me in my home, where we are going to identify your personal biggest block to your next level of healing and regulation. If the concepts in this podcast episode were interesting to you, then you will want to check out podcast episode 71, where we also touched on attachment and autoimmunity and fatigue. Episode 133 was on autoimmunity and childhood trauma. I have a few YouTube videos that I will link to as well in the show notes. I am here to save you time and money by bringing you practical information that will help you accelerate the healing journey. So please take a moment to subscribe and leave a review. Your feedback is how I know how to improve this podcast, bring you great content, and allow others to find the information that can save their life as well. I'm your host, Dr. Aimie. Until next episode, lots of love.